Yeah, go ahead. Awesome, guys. So, my name is Mariah Cunningham. Depending on where I'm at, I introduce myself differently, right? When I go to an AA meeting, I say I'm an addict. When I go to an AA meeting, I mention that I'm an alcoholic. And when I go to celebrate recovery, I say I'm a firm believer in Jesus Christ and I struggle with whatever it happens to be that week that I identify as my struggle. Because that's what's true about me. Is I'm an alcoholic. That was easy to recognize, right? I binge drink, I don't stop until I have to stop. But it was the marijuana that was hard to recognize. It was time for me to quit. And so I leaned on Oxford House because I had some friends that were living in Oxford houses. And in an Oxford house, if I use, I'm out. But I get this beautiful home to live in. I get the structure that Oxford House has to offer. And I get 6, 7 brothers that I didn't have before. And so today, I'm over a year clean. On the 26th of February, I celebrated a year. So Oxford House is, like I said, it's my home. I've started working at Oxford House October 1st of this last year. So I'm pretty brand new to the outreach position. As outreach, my primary goal is to be a liaison between people like these guys here and the members in the houses, and to help empower the members to be able to run their houses properly. So let's see what's got set up here on this slide. So it's peer run, self-supporting, substance-free housing. It's really cool. So we're completely democratically ran. Every single house is full of people like myself, people that are in recovery, that are needing to have the support and structure that Oxford House offers. There's no house manager. It's different than a lot of sober livings in that way. It's really empowering for members. The other thing that's very significant is that we are self-supported, right? We want to be quality members of society. We want to see our houses be successful in the neighborhoods that they're in, be paying their landlords on time. We have the 3 core principles, as I was mentioning. So we have the charter requirements that each Oxford House has to have. They have to be democratically ran, right? We have to make decisions as a house. Sometimes the decision I want to make doesn't get made because the democracy made a different decision. And I get to accept that. I'm thankful for that because my best decisions got me into an AA meeting. My best decisions got me addicted. So I now lean on the support of others instead. We are financially self-supporting. Every member pays their own way. We expect that after 30 days, you're employed. After 60 days, you're paying your own way instead of relying on a government organization or anything of that sort. And after 90 days, you're completely caught up and you stay caught up. If that's not available to a member, then they're probably not Oxford House material. And sadly, they'll need to go figure out what's the next step for them, is whether that's a rehab center, whether that's unfortunately more time in the addiction, because this thing is a disease and it will take people out. But sometimes they come in and they struggle to get that job after the first 30 days. They start paying their own way after this first 60 days. After 90 days, they're caught up and they fight to stay caught up, and they realize this is a little bit better than they thought it was going to be. And they get to be in long-term recovery. So that's exciting. We also, of course, have to expel people as soon as they begin using. If any relapse, if a member comes to me and tells me, hey man, I took a drink, but I'm not going to do it again. Unfortunately, that means that person needs to move out. They can go to detox, they can go to reevaluate their treatment program and reapply potentially. All of the houses are, of course, gender specific. We've tried men and women houses before. It just doesn't work out with the Oxford model. So we have men houses, we have women houses, and we have men and children and women and children houses. So if there are parents, which there are a lot of parents that need a place to be so they can work their recovery, that child's going through recovery too. They now get to be around people that are also like that. Have to have 6 beds in the house. We need it to be a financially stable house, right? Especially with the market that we're at now. Anything below 6 just doesn't work, and it doesn't work with the Oxford structure. Everybody has a position in the house. So whether you're the treasurer, the president, the comptroller keeps track of what money comes in, the treasurer keeps track of what money goes out, right? There's 6 positions in the house. We want to have 1 person in each position. We started in 1975. One house is a really interesting story, right? So the halfway house in town was going to close down. And so the alcoholics in the house said, what are we going to do? We watched people move out of the halfway house after 6 months, and 2 months later they're drinking. And I don't want that for my life. So they decided that something needed to change. They happened to know the owner of that house, and they figured, why don't we rent it together? But a house manager costs too much, and a house cook costs too much, and a house therapist costs too much. But I remember this frat house, they used to do it just them. Maybe we can do it just us, and somehow, some way it worked. And now there are over 3,000 houses, 3,300 houses in the United States, started in Silver Springs, Maryland. There we go, 3,300 plus houses. So that means 26,000 people are available to be able to be in a bed. They don't have to be on the streets. They don't have to be struggling to figure out what it's like to go back home to where they used to use, where everybody else uses, and try to white knuckle it until they're finally sober. It's not going to happen. I wouldn't be able to do it if I were living in the same spot I was living before. Fortunately, I have Oxford House. So it's amazing that we have that many, 47 states, 5 different countries. Expanding even still. Yeah, it's amazing, right? No one leaves without a cause. Once you move into Oxford House, you're allowed to stay permanently. That was one of the things that the founding members set up, because 6 months later, you move out of the halfway house, you end up returning back to use. So if you need Oxford House, if you feel like Oxford House is your home, as long as you don't return to use, as long as you pay your way, you follow the house rules, you can stay there for eternity. Colorado state chair says, you're going to take my dead body out of this house. I love it here. Said, okay, well, maybe go to the hospital and die, but whatever. Again, men and women, women and children, men and children. It's a picture of a house there in the Longmont area. We typically pick nice neighborhoods, right? Nice houses. It's quite a benefit to come out of addiction. You know, the boarded house down the street. Yeah, that's where I stay at for so long. But now I get to live in beautiful houses. Some of the nicest houses in Pueblo are the houses that we have rented out in Oxford houses in nice neighborhoods, right? Because we can't recover in the crack alley. It just doesn't work. Like I just said, you can't go back to the house where you were using, and you can't go where there's 5 houses down the street that you know you can pick up that. So instead, we go to nice neighborhoods and we become great neighbors because we all have responsibility. We all have people that take care that we have to be held accountable to. Long-term leases, it really works well to have a 3-year lease to start out with, 5-year lease as we go on, to create a relationship with investors so that we can have this going for a long term. We need the structure, right? A couple other things required, right? We do want it to be able to support the members. We want it to be close to meetings, close to public transportation. To be a member, let's see, you need to make sure that you are indeed someone who is withdrawal-free sobriety, in withdrawal-free sobriety. Typically, we like to see people that have come fresh out of a treatment program, things like that. We're not necessarily looking, we're not a detox center. So we're not going to be putting people in that are fresh, 1 day clean from using whatever their drug of choice was, because that just doesn't succeed in this sort of self-run, self-supporting, self-sustaining environment. Instead, people that have gone through treatment program, and what's the next step? Come to Oxford. People that have been relapsed multiple times because they just can't figure it out, they've gone through treatment, come to Oxford, because we've had a success rate, and we'll get to that here in a second, but we've had a success rate that's right at 95% for the last couple of years. For people that stay for 2 years, about 5% of people leave due to relapse. Otherwise, people stick around, they leave on their own terms. Vacancy website, so if you need to see what your house is at, you can, or if you need somebody that needs a house, if you know somebody that needs an Oxford house, go to oxfordvacancies.org. You can fill out an application there. You can see what houses are in your area, how many beds they have available, how many beds total are in the house. It's a great way for investors to be able to check on their investment, right? You call somebody like me, we can talk, that's great. You can also check on here and see, hey, wow, my house has 4 people, 4 open beds right now. So let me call Mariah. Let me see what's going on with that. Let me see if there's a change happening here soon. Or wow, my house is doing great. We've got all the beds full. Call the house, the president of the house, talk with him anytime. You got to fill out the application. You'll have an interview with the house. If you get an 80% acceptance from the house, you get to move in immediately. No delay period on that.
So the interview has to be face to face.
It is, yes. We do some interviews that are not necessarily face to face over the phone or over Zoom. That is an opportunity, but for the most part, we do prefer to have it face to face because every House member being democratically ran gets a chance to vote on that person. And see if they make sense.
Is there an admission process? So, if, like, say they are going to get other treatment, by some OP level there, is there being that it is democratically run? Is there still an admission process formally or no?
Well, so just that interview, and then there's certain periods where we have like a new member's contract, right? Just requirements that they have to keep to be able to remain in the House. It's a little bit stricter right off the bat. When you first come in, strict may not be the right word here, but right off the bat, you're not allowed to have overnights. You need to make sure that you're checking in with the House all the time. Most houses will have you be doing more UAs to really make sure you get situated well into the House. And then as you've got longevity into the House, then you start to get a little bit more freedoms, because that's the goal, right? We're not looking to be a hardcore treatment facility. We're not a treatment facility where you can't be your recovery program. If somebody needs recovery, then they need to fight for their recovery. Go to AA meetings, go to Dharma, go to work out at the gym, whatever that is. We are looking to empower people to find that on their own. And so it's not going to be, the admission program is fairly laxed compared to something like a treatment center. So it's at 250 in Colorado, it's 250 move-in fee, and that is non-refundable. That's not like the deposit that when you move out, it'll come back. That's not the case. And then per house is a different, what we call EES, right? So every member of the house shares the expense of the house. If they have 12 members in the house and they're paying $3,200 for rent plus whatever the bills are, then they'll split that even. If they have 4 members in the house and the same amount, they'll split that evenly. And so it really does encourage members of the house to get more members into the house. Because, yes, sir.
So if it's 6 or 8, does the homeowner get the same money?
Correct. Yes, sir.
So if for example, you get a new person in the first month, they don't have a job, they don't have money. Or if you have people that drop out during the month, does that rent for those people get adjusted so the rent gets paid to the owner?
Yeah, so if somebody moves in halfway through the month, their rent will be prorated for the amount of time that they're there. Or if they leave early or whatnot, their rent will be prorated. To be frank, we're dealing with addicts here. I'm an addict. It's fortunate that I didn't bounce out early. Sometimes that happens, you know, sometimes people leave us high and dry without the rent that we were expecting from them. I'm sure you guys are familiar with situations like that, right?
I'll chime in a little bit here too. So, as the landlord, my lease is with Oxford House. So I get paid every month, regardless of how full or empty the house is. They're the ones that are filling the houses. They're the ones responsible taking care of the tenant or the members, yeah, the members. So I don't really have to take care of any of that. I just get the check every single month. And I believe there's some other funds, like if it's not quite full, to meet full rent, there's the Oxford is a nonprofit. They have extra funds to kind of compensate to make sure that the landlord always gets paid every single month.
Yeah, thank you for that. Absolutely.
You got a couple questions about homeowners associations.
Yeah, sure.
How do you deal with that?
We typically avoid HOAs.
Okay.
We try to avoid HOAs.
Okay, so you're looking at basically
We're looking for single family homes, in good neighborhoods. We don't want to have the constriction that HOA has. Not that we could be able to oblige, but we just try to avoid HOAs.
They have more rights than Joe, normal homeowner. Those are the fair housing.
Fair housing, yeah.
They're protected class.
Yeah.
Is that how you get around the no more than 3 unrelated parties?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yeah, we're considered a single family. Because of we're protected class. And that is somewhere in here. So as he was saying, the landlord will always get paid. Yes.
I was gonna ask, but just to piggyback on that, how much, like, not in my backyard and that stuff do you have to deal with?
Right off the bat, there's some. But very quickly, most neighbors realize that they're the best neighbors they have. It happens very quickly, but usually there's a little bit of the uptake. right as the house is opening up, you know, we like to go around and say, hey, we're Oxford House, we're gonna be moving in, there's gonna be 7 guys living here. If you need anything, you let us know, we're gonna shovel your walk every day, whatever, you know, and so it balances out very quickly. So
How many of the people usually have cars? Because I can imagine you had 6 cars or 7 cars and
we do try to make sure that the lot is going to be able to accommodate for 7, 8 cars. It varies, of course. You got a question?
Yeah, when you say 6 beds, is that 6 private bedrooms?
You know, typically we prefer to have 1 or 2 shared bedrooms with two beds in the room for the newer members. You know, to be able to give them that extra level of accountability as they first come in. But then beyond that, yes, we'd like single bedrooms.
And if it's a private room, like an office, but not a closet, is that qualified?
Yeah.
Okay.
A lot of times we'll rehab a room a little bit and we'll see that there's room for a wall to be built here to add an extra room into a house.
Is there a like square footage to how many rooms or how many beds you can have? One that I would like to see, or it just depends on the land?
Yeah, I think it is based on the county. So the house itself has its own structure, and then above the house, each house is part of a chapter. And so the chapter has its own structure. Then the chapter is all supported by the state association, which is supported by the world association. And so there's several levels of accountability here, several levels of structure and support. If, for instance, a house is sitting at a low number of members and they're not able to pay their rent, well, they can petition the chapter to get a loan to be able to support that. Chapter can petition the state to get a loan to support that. It's very rare that that happens, but the first priority is always going to be our landlord. We really like to make it a good investment, right? We enjoy it. Do you feel like it's a good investment?
Yeah, it's really an incredible investment. The numbers are easy. It's your PIT, your principal, interest, taxes, and insurance. Take the lease minus that, and that's your cash flow. They take care of all the utilities. They take care of the house. Every now and then, if there's a major repair that needs to be done, they'll call me up and I'll take care of it. Furnace goes out, there's a plumbing leak or something like that, I'll take care of it. But other than that, I don't hear from them very often. And they're never late with their check. So it's one of the most passive investments I've had in the residential real estate side of things.
If your lease is with Oxford House.
Yeah.
How do you determine the rent?
It is based off of their per bed. There's a certain number based off of what their occupancy they can get. So I usually have Oxford come in before I purchase a property to come take a look at it. Is this going to work for you? What kind of adjustments do I need to make? Like if I need to add bedrooms, how many bedrooms do I need to add? If I need to add extra parking, what does that look like? And then, I don't know, wait, what was your question again?
How do you
How did you
determine the rent? As an owner, you want to make sure that there's some cash flow.
I've got a certain criteria for me as an investor. I had a certain criteria that I was looking for an Oxford house. I was looking for $1,000 a month cash flow. That's just my personal, like, I wouldn't do an Oxford house unless I made at least $1,000 a month net.
Yeah, and that is our goal typically, is about $1,000 for the investor to be able to net above what they're paying on the mortgage or whatever it costs, right? We want a cash flow for the investor because we do understand that every person that's investing in Oxford House gets to have a philanthropy side of this. You get to help out the struggling, recovering addict, and that's amazing. But you also are having a good partnership with us where you are going to make a good investment return on this. Your ROI is going to be great.
So you say $1,000 net, is that including a reserve for replacements and repairs?
For me as an investor, I'll start putting that into the reserve. And then I wouldn't expect any repairs for the first few months. So I'm just keeping that in the bank, building up that reserve until a repair does happen. I mean, it's all in a separate account. I have a separate LLC for my Oxford homes, and it just sits in the bank account whenever I need it. It's there. I've always had enough reserves to take care of the repairs. Plus.
And did you do a long-term lease with Oxford?
Yeah, 3-year lease.
3 year.
Mm-hmm.
Are these then fully furnished?
No. No, I didn't have to furnish them at all. My second one, there was already couches in the residence that I didn't want to trash or move. So I asked them if they wanted it, and they did, so I just left it there. But other than that, no, I haven't had to supply any of the furniture.
So Oxford House provides the interior decoration, I mean, beds and all that.
Yeah, absolutely.
They bring in their own stuff, and Oxford House provides beds.
How long does it take you to evaluate a house?
I mean, so we have a pretty tight model of what we're looking for. So once we find something that seems like it might be a good choice, we can figure it out here pretty quickly. The major process would be just the negotiating with the landlord, make sure that we're gonna be meeting at the right point, if the number of beds that we're gonna have available and the amount that we'd be able to charge per member is going to meet the price that we need.
So my process, I actually heard Vince speak about this on the clubhouse talk that he did. And I love the business model. And so his wife Lavanya was nice enough to give me their contacts in Denver, and she connected me with the location that they wanted, right? So they told me Loveland is where they wanted to be. And so I got hooked up with a male rep and a female rep who already had houses in Loveland, and one wanted to move to Loveland, and we toured 5 houses. So on one Sunday, we toured all 5 houses. They told me what they liked, what they didn't like about each house, and then we finalized our top 2. And I put offers in, but even right there, he could tell me, here's what I need you to do. Here's how we're gonna add 3 bedrooms. And if you add these 3 bedrooms, I'll give you X amount of money. So it was within a half hour that we knew exactly if I followed the things that they were requesting that I would get for rent.
So that's what I was gonna specifically ask Vance was. You went out, you were specifically looking for an Oxford House investment, I mean, it sounds like you.
That's fabulous, yes.
So, yeah, but
I had already gone through the process, so I know what they're looking for. So at this point, I can, like, Ivania will just sit there, she'll be scoping the MLS, be like, this would be great Oxford House. The numbers look good, we should go and take a look at it. And then if it looks good, we'll get it under contract and get Oxford out there as soon as possible. Yeah, no worries. So I'm looking for usually 2,000 square feet is the minimum. Like, my first house is about 2,000 square feet. I was able to get 5 bedrooms in there, once a double occupancy, so that meets their 6 criteria. My other one's 4,000 square feet. It's for moms and kids. So that one gets a lot more rent every single month, obviously because of the size. There's 10 bedrooms in that one. I just happened to stumble on that one, and it was a great deal. But
Is that how many people you can fit in the year? So we're looking at gold, or is
Yeah.
it doubling the fund? Right? So that's how I'm not-
yeah, I don't think you guys want that too much. It's more comfortability for them. I usually try to make every bedroom 100 square feet at least, with some sort of storage closet, something like that. Other than that, the larger bedrooms, they can make double occupancy, but they'll tell me like how many they can put in each place, and like usually just one major living space. If there's a second one, I can turn those into bedrooms. Right. Adequate parking. So parking's a huge thing. I usually look for like corner lots. They don't like to park in front of neighbors' yards, or like in preference of being respectful to the neighbors. They don't want to be having cars all in their spaces as well. So sometimes if there's like a 3-car garage or something, so there's an extra driveway, there's extra parking there. They tend not to park in the garage. They need extra storage, so they'll use the garage for extra storage. But yeah, the corner lots are super.
I like the story where you said you were worried about your property getting been in a while.
Oh yeah.
You thought you might want to go by and check on it?
Yeah, we got a couple stories, because there's 2 stories. The first story was one of the houses I hadn't visited for my first one. I didn't visit for a year. I was like, I probably should visit this thing. I don't know how they're taking care of my house or what, but I probably should stop by. And when I went over and stopped by the house, it was in better condition than when I left it. So I was like, oh, this is great. They're taking care of the yard. They planted some stuff in the yard. That particular house, they wanted to build a shed because they wanted some storage. And they asked me if I could. They could. It's like, sure, of course you can. Build a shed, increase my property value. I mean, go for it, you know? So stuff like that. As far as, I think there was a question about like what kind of pushback you'll get from the neighbors sometimes. The second house I opened up, somebody got wind that we were turning the house into sober living. And while my contractors were digging out an egress window, there was 5 or 6 elderly folk that decided to descend upon my contractors, be like, what do you think you're doing? And they were trespassing on the property because it was in the backyard. So they scared my contractors like, we don't know what to do. Like, these people are scary. What do we do? And they put it on their Facebook page, like they're in saying that this is what they're doing and all this stuff. And but Oxford House then stepped in and kind of relieved the neighbors of what was happening. And they've been great. The neighbors really enjoy having the women and children house there. And it's been good since.
So that leads to my next question. Would you give referrals to, you know, potential, like if you bought a house and the neighbors got skeptical, would you jump in and help out with getting into that house?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we're very well experienced in how to handle those kind of situations.
And secondly, like, you know, I'm sure Jim probably has some properties that he's held on to for 10 years. Well, his cost of buying that house 10 years ago is different than today. How do you guys approach neighborhoods where, or houses that, you know, have appreciated quite a bit of value and still try to make it work for everybody?
Yeah, I mean, so we'll just, every time that lease comes up, we can renegotiate and make sure we have the right cost for everybody involved.
Could you handle $5,000 lease versus a $3,000 lease?
You know, that kind of jump would be very tough. And Vince and I were just talking about the likelihood of increasing a yearly amount in when his lease is up for renewal. And that's definitely something we've done with several houses. Instead of asking for a $2,000 jump right off the bat, maybe this year we'll ask for that amount and then a percentage each year to get to that point where we can be asking for that much.
So is the tenants strictly rehab individuals or just any homeless thing?
Well, so everybody does need to be actively working their recovery.
Okay.
The model of Oxford is you grow or go, not stay and lay, right? And so every member of Oxford is going to be a person that is in recovery and working to better themselves. Absolutely, yeah, we have great connections with all of the treatment centers around the areas in each different region that we're in, which of course is the Fort Collins area, Denver, Springs, Pueblo, east of Pueblo, Western Slopes. We're really growing out towards Durango right now. Montrose area is really expanding really quickly right now. And so all of those areas, one of the first things we can do is create that partnership with the treatment facilities. And that's where a lot of the members are going to come from, have that safe space to live.
I have a cousin that's gone through drug rehab. She lives in Austin right now, and they pretty much, I mean, she grew up in Houston. And that's where she, you know, kind of hit the wall.
Sure.
And they decided she needed to get away from Houston because that's
her
little community, right?
Yes, yes.
Is that typically what you find is people need, if they're gonna do appropriate rehab, recovery, et cetera, they need to get away from the area that they.
You know, for a lot of people, that does seem to be the case. But I like to remind myself that no matter where I go, I'm right there. And so it's very important that the mindset of the individual changes. And that's something that Oxford House helps with, right? Because there's 7 other individuals that have a varying amount of recovery time, they can start to be that peer support for the individual to see that change. This is why we have the surprising numbers that we do, is because of the structure and support that's right there. Instead of people going back to rehab time after time again, wondering when they're going to finally find sobriety. They now have that peer support 24/7 available to them in the house. And they start to see that success. And so that mindset can finally switch. And we can finally start to grow instead of just.
Now, do they restrict cell phones or?
No.
Those away, or?
No, the only restriction will be the, obviously it's a sober living home. So if you have a guest that comes over to the house, they have to be sober. We can't have anybody that's under the influence or really even in active use coming over to the house. Otherwise, you can have 3 nights, once you're past your new members contracts you were talking about earlier, you can have 3 nights out of the house or with a guest in the house, as long as of course they're sober. The only exception with that is a mommy and me house or a daddy and me house, right? We're not going to allow overnight guests in the house. There's gonna be a restriction on sexual interactions in the house whatsoever to protect those children. But otherwise, it's very free. Yes.
Well, you mentioned UAs, so people are actively doing your.
Yes, sir.
Test and breathalyzers, and how are they getting to those? I mean, if they're,
That's purchased by the house.
well, I mean, and are these people able to drive? I mean, a lot of people would get a DUI or something like that, and they may be, in an active recovery situation that still need to follow those guidelines of UA breathalyzers, things like that. How are they getting actually? Was that the transportation?
Exactly.
Okay, then
Yeah, we really needed to be close to public transportation because as it was mentioned, a lot of people in early recovery don't have a vehicle or they don't have a license available. They have restrictions, need to pay off a large fine, need to spend a couple of years before they can even get the breathalyzer in the vehicle with them, There's a lot of people that aren't able to drive right when they first get in the house. And so for that reason, we do need it to be close to public transportation, close to employment opportunities, close to places where they have meetings. And so it does make a difference, but there are people that do have vehicles. To answer your question on UAs, typically we look for behaviors, right? We get to know individuals, our roommates, our family as they become, right? We get to know them, and when there's signs that things are going awry with them, we have that chance to pull them aside and say what's going on. And then obviously there is a random UA throughout the month, throughout the weeks. Different houses handle it differently, but there's for sure accountability to make sure that everybody in the house is safe from a person returning to use, because that can crumble anybody in recovery. Being around people is tough. So it's very important that we keep watching that. Yes, sir.
Is there a regression rate?
Yeah, let me see if I can find that statistic in here. I think it's actually on this page. So we're looking at 13.5%. This is according to the DePaul study, have relapsed. Yet that means that 80-some didn't, right? 86.5% stayed into long-term recovery. People have found that once they get into recovery, maybe they start working, they're making minimum wage, they begin to become more of an asset because of the structure that they're in. They get more money going forward. They are more than likely going to stop going back to prison. The amazing thing about Oxford House is it costs the government nothing to be able to see people recover. It's amazing. I absolutely love it. Here's some Colorado statistics. Kind of hard to read there, but for the last 2 years in Colorado, we have had an abstinence rate of 94.9%. Wow. Yeah, 5.1% of all members that have been accepted in Oxford House have left due to relapse. Yeah, isn't that great?
That is great.
That's great.
That's
Yeah,
great.
that is.
AA doesn't have those kind of numbers.
AA doesn't have those kind of numbers, right?
Well, most of the houses, and Vince, you probably have a handle on this. It sounds like if you're not in an HOA, you're probably going to be older houses, correct?
A lot of them are older houses.
Close, obviously, to major thoroughfares and, yeah.
So, I mean, I've talked to Mike for a minute. If you guys have anything more you'd like to share about your side of it.
Yeah, I mean, you're looking at 1990 or earlier houses most likely without HOAs, so. But, you know, the first one I did was a fix and flip that went kind of awry. The numbers didn't quite make sense. I was gonna end up breaking even. It's like, do I want to sell this thing and just break even or just hold on to this? So I decided to hold on to it and converted it to an Oxford house. So I tend to like using the burst strategy with these. I'll buy, rehab, and then refinance. You know, use my hard money, fix it up, and then refinance it. And then, you know, like the first house, I had literally, I think add $5,000 of my own cash into the property when I was all done. And then it was cash flowing $1,000 a month. So that's, you know, cash on cash return, incredible. So I lost my train of thought again. It's been one of those nights.
You're too young for that.
All right, yeah, go ahead. If I can remember that.
I had just two fun facts that I had learned during this process, and one was, I renovate houses, right? So a lot of the houses that I buy, people leave stuff behind. So any people who renovate in here, they're always taking fridges. They like to have, 4 or 5 fridges. And so just because my white fridge, it doesn't work in a flip, it doesn't mean it's not gonna work for them. So think of these guys in those situations. And the
How do
other,
you let them know you have a fridge that needs to go away?
that's the best way. I contacted Michelle. So I mean, I
I have
can.
a fridge now that, you know, needs to go.
I didn't nothing, I would love to have it, so I gotta coordinate my stuff to get up there too. And then the second thing is, they don't have renter's insurance, so for any of you first time people considering this, that was kind of a big thing for us. Was, oh shoot, they're not gonna have renter's insurance, how does that protect us, and what carriers? Because one carrier we looked at wouldn't cover the whole place if they were at fault, so there's plenty of carriers that do, but just something to keep in the back of your mind as you're structuring this deal.
That's carried.
I know State Farm does, I don't know who you use,
I use State Farm.
State Farm,
I understand.
oh, okay.
Sure, probably.
Are there any disqualifiers on the house, like no HOA, not next to,
You don't wanna be on Colfax.
Yes.
Yeah, we're not gonna be on Colfax.
I asked that whole fact. I know.
I mean, not next to a liquor store or dispensary or?
Yeah, so I mean, it's rare nowadays to find a neighborhood that doesn't have or is surrounded.
Yeah.
Yet. We do prefer to be separated from influences of that nature. Other than that, no, I mean, for the most part, not an HOA, that it just meets the requirements as was spoken, right? Six room for 6 occupants, a good sized living area, the 2,000 square feet, things like that. We wanted to not be on Colfax. We wanted to not be in the neighborhoods that are known for high crime and drug activity. It is nice, obviously, to have simple air and heat. We do like to have that picture that I saw, that looked a lot like what Oxford houses typically look like. We try to furnish a very nice house. We look to buy things that are very upstate, very, very high quality. Yes, ma'am.
How many bathrooms are you looking for?
We're looking for one for every 2 or 3 members.
Okay, so 3 store.
Yes, sir.
Are there any restrictions on the type of mortgage, like a DSCR loan, that kind of stuff? Is it okay?
I have no restrictions. I'm perfectly fine with renting from you, however it is that you choose to purchase the house.
I have had clients that have asked, can they be living in the house as well? Or is that a no?
No, we would need it to be completely Oxford House members inside the house. There was a couple questions. Yes, sir.
How do you just handle meals?
Every member provides their own food.
What's that?
Every member provides their own food, their own meals.
That's why you need extra refrigerators.
Yeah.
That's why we need
more
Yeah,
refrigerator.
they're on separate spaces.
Yep.
So each member is cooking, so you have to like rotate using the kitchen, that's all.
Yeah, so I mean, it works out pretty well inside the houses to be able to rotate the kitchen. I mean, we have a pretty good communication that way. But every night, usually a member of the house will clean the kitchen. Then we'll have weekly chores set up for other areas of the house. But the kitchen, since it is used every day, multiple times a day, it's important that we're sweeping and mopping every day, wiping off counters every day, so we don't allow any kind of buildup of dirt and debris that can obviously lead to issues.
One follow, how did COVID impact any of this? Did you guys have?
We of course,
COVID
yeah.
Situation? sure you did.
Yeah, it's group living. So there were times that houses did have COVID end up running through the house, just like anytime the flu goes around. It'll run right through that house at times, you know. What we did is we stopped doing in-person meetings for a little while during COVID, right? We have a chapter meeting once a month, we have a state association meeting once every 2 months, and a house meeting every week. And so the house meeting would still happen in person, but every other meeting would happen over Zoom. We would begin having less interaction between houses, which hurt. It really did. Because part of the structure of Oxford is about unity. It's about building those bonds with other people, seeing the networking that's available between everybody there. I was asked earlier about jobs for individuals that move into the house. One thing that's been very successful is that most members, when they move in, they find a job, it's an entry-level job, and they can network that to the other members. And so it's very rare that a house is not sound. Usually, especially in the Denver metro area, houses get full within a month, 2 weeks. Yes, sir.
So just explain the protected class to me. Is it federal? Is it state?
It is federal, I believe.
Can I throw something in? I have a client that has assisted living residences. I think you guys fall under the same sort of, I forget the HUD guidelines or whatever it is, but yeah.
Fair house.
Fair house.
So yes, attics are considered protected class. And so the Fair Housing Act says that we are allowed to occupy a single family home and be able to operate it as such. Just recently in the city of Pueblo contacted us and said, you guys are zoned correctly. We're gonna need to get the fire department out. We're gonna need to get all these people out there really quick. And I was 2 weeks into my job. I said, hey boss, what do I? He's like, just calm down really quick. This is covered. I said, the Fair Housing Act? Yes, of course. And so our lawyers said, hey, here's the response. And they said, at this time, we don't feel like there's any concern, but we'll let you know.
Yeah.
You let me know.
No blocks or
No block buttons.
You said that we all provide for their own food. Has it happened where a bunch of them or the whole house gets together and cooks?
Always.
Always?
Yeah, most every night. Houses are cooking for each other and spending time around the dinner table.
You're a family in there, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
We become a family. Yes, sir.
Do you have like account managers? So for you as the homeowners, is it the same person you're contacting through Oxford Homes every time? Is it, how does that look?
So there's a point person in the house that usually is the one that contacts me. If there's a repair that needs to be made or anything that the house might potentially need, they're the ones that contact me. I don't usually talk to anybody else in the house.
Oh, so it's somebody from the house, not from Oxford?
Yeah, they live in the house.
Had a unique situation where the gentleman who was going to be the head house president, he took another job and decided not to oversee the house. And so then I was talking to the next line up. So like you were talking about the structure, like there's always someone to talk to, but they try to handle it at the lowest level.
And you know, obviously there is some retention rate issues at times, right? And so at times you'll call the house up and that same person you've been communicating with is no longer there. But there is a house number that you can always get a hold of. If you can't get a hold of anybody in the house, then you reach out to chapter. You'll be able to have chapter numbers. As you were saying, there's multiple levels. You can always reach out to your outreach worker, and that may have been Bob. Yep. Bob took another job. He was the Denver area and then Fort Collins and Northern Colorado area outreach worker. He went ahead and moved on to another company. And so, however, when Bob's not available, Taylor is, Michelle is, Mariah is. There's 10 of us in Colorado that are specifically outreach workers. But you can always, as Vince said, get a hold of the house.
How many houses are you looking for?
You know, there's not a number at this point. And yeah, as many as we can get, there's a demand.
There's that much demand.
There's that much demand. Yes, ma'am.
You handle the sentiment, because you get personalities may clash.
Yeah.
It may be where everybody gets along except one. How do you handle that?
So the democratic process kind of takes over. We set out the guidelines ahead of time. And then if someone is causing disruptive behavior, right? Causing disunity in the house or pretending to be in relapse behavior, then the house will sit down and have a conversation with them. And maybe even write out a disruptive behavior contract, saying you're presenting these issues. We need you to correct these issues in this amount of time by doing these steps. And if you don't, then you would be asked to leave. That would be a cause to be asked to leave. One thing that's interesting about the members of Oxford is we are members, we pay EES, we don't have renter credits. So if I were to have used, then 15 minutes later, I'm asked to be out of that house. And I can come back within the next 72 hours to get my stuff. If let's say that I haven't kept my financial agreement up, then they'll probably give me 24 hours to move. But there's no need for an eviction. That won't happen. You would be evicting Oxford House if you're evicting it. And instead, Oxford House is going to handle their business and they're going to empty that house out if that's what needs to happen and fill it with other people. With the first person to move in the house is always going to be a trained member of Oxford, someone that's been in Oxford for 6 months, 2 years, that knows the Oxford model, that can teach the Oxford model to anybody else that moves in. So you're not at the risk of a house opening up and you just have brand new people that are trying to figure this out. No, we're gonna have people that know what they're doing. Yes, ma'am.
Dogs or cats, nobody's cats.
You know, we do leave that up with the communication with the landlord. Have you guys had any?
We had one ask.
Yeah.
Yeah, one of the houses I had asked if one of the tenants, if I would allow a pet, and I was reluctant, but if it was small enough, I'd be okay with it, but they kind of dealt with it on their own and came to the agreement as a house that they didn't want the pet in the house, so they ended up not putting the pet in there, so I've never had a pet in the house.
So if that were the case, would Oxford House pay extra for pets in the house?
Like the pet, like pet rent?
Yeah.
Haven't gotten to that point, but if anybody was there on Saturday about some of the legislation coming down the pike,
Right.
Oxford House I'm not worried about it.
The whole pet thing's coming to a big change. You gotta look at this new law.
Yeah, so a lot of the, like the rent control, all the different things that are trying to pass, I'm not too worried about it as a landlord to Oxford House. I would be as a traditional landlord, I would definitely be concerned. Some of these laws that are trying to pass, but I don't think Oxford House doesn't really fall into any of those.
Basically, I think what the new pet law is, you can have unlimited number of pets. And if they do damage, the most you can get back for $1,000. So if they destroy your carpet, chew up the walls, $1,000. They can have 8 dogs, or I don't think they specify what kind of pet either. Miniature horse could be in there. Elephants, giraffe. People have miniature horses, y'all laugh.
Wolverine.
Pigs.
Jenny.
I digress.
If you structure your lease with Oxford House, no pets,
Yeah, you'd be able to structure the lease that way.
They have to ask, right? That's
Yeah,
within the
yes.
lease, is they have to ask you
Yeah.
as a landlord before, and if you say no, you say no.
Yeah, you could definitely say no.
So it's already in.
Yeah, it's already structured in the
Yeah.
lease. I brought with me a single copy of the landlord packet that I typically will hand out to landlords that are potentially looking to invest. And it shows in there what a typical lease will look like with Oxford House, and I can email this out to anybody that would like to read it. No problem at all. I did shout out my number if anybody wrote it down, shoot me a text. No,
Can we text you our email address?
perfect.
Well, what's your email?
Yeah.
My email is Mariah.Cunningham. That's MORIAH. Period CUNNINGHAM. At oxfordhouse.org.
Cunningham, HAM,
HAM, yes, sir.
Oxford House.
Dot
Single.
.org.
Sounds like the beauty of
Sa-
Oxford.
Oxford.
You don't have to-
Oxford
House.
House.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
You don't have to really worry about all these questions that people are asking, like, you know, what happens if there's a fight in the house, or what happens? It's like, you don't really care, you're getting your rent, your house isn't, like,
Yeah,
it's
so
being
this-
destroyed, right?
This presentation was, it was interesting, but I didn't realize they were doing all that, so. As a landlord, I'm really hands off as far as what I need to do as a landlord. I just need to cash the check and make a few repairs here and there. And sometimes make a decision if need be, but I mean, I have traditional rentals as well. And I'm selling them right now, so I could buy more Oxford houses. I mean, it's a really good model.
Easy self-management as well.
Yes. Yeah, they self-manage themselves and it's super easy.
They, warranty on your house, that if there's a problem.
Like a home warranty? No, I don't have a home warranty.
You do a security
Sorry,
deposit?
So typically what we're looking for is no security deposit. Just because the cost of that going forward, we do have some that require a security deposit, and we'll still work with them, but that's very rare. We usually are looking for 1 or 2 months, the first month free for that lease, without a security deposit, the second month, maybe second, third, fourth, so I'm probably gonna ask for half off. So that we can not set up the house for bid. As it's starting to get filled up with members, we're not gonna have the right amount of income right off the bat. So instead of breaking our relationship right off the bat, if you guys can give us the leeway of those first few months, then going forward beyond that, you're always gonna have your rent on time. You're gonna have that simple passive income coming in every month.
But what's typically the leases, so that doesn't change from a couple months to some months?
I didn't hear you.
It's laid out, how much they'll pay the second month, how much they'll pay
It's in the lease.
the third month. It's written out in your contract together.
Now you've got 3-year leases. What, if you were a landlord, what would you expect the occupants, I mean, how long would this go on?
I mean, we have houses in the East Coast that have been open for 30 years.
Okay. So it's something, if it's working, you're not gonna say,
We're
no,
not gonna ask them to go. So I've got a letter in here that I got to read probably for the first time today. I should probably read my material or no. So over the park, Kansas, right? He said, to whom it may concern, I'm a property manager in the Kansas City area. I've had the pleasure of renting Oxford houses for the past 5 years. In my opinion, from a renter property perspective, a group Oxford men or women are perhaps the best tenants you can ever have. And here are the reasons why. They never miss a rent payment. This is one concern you will not have if you own or lease / rent an Oxford house. 2, maintenance of property. Each Oxford house I have the pleasure of working with will always maintain the property with great respect and pride. I have yet to walk into an Oxford house that was not clean and tidy. Additionally, the lawn and grounds are always properly maintained. Always occupied. As an owner or property manager, you never have to worry about the issues such as vacancy loss, utilities not on, damage during vacancy periods. 4, giving back to the community. There is a great need for community members to reassimilate back into a normal routine. The Oxford House concept provides this exact opportunity for individuals to reestablish their lives in a safe and friendly, structured, drug-free environment. And he said, if you'd like to contact him, you can call him. His name is Jake. I give you his number. No, so yeah, it seems to be, in fact, my first investment, whenever it happens to be that I finally got the money up, that I can contact this guy and he can loan me some money, right? Will be an Oxford house. Because I know the benefit that Oxford has given me and those around me. And I also see the investment value of it. And so it's a win-win. There is a company I just got the chance to talk with. They rent out a few houses in Pueblo area. And they have a renter management company that Oxford is all they deal with. And they got together a group of investors and they began investing in Oxford. And it's a win-win all day for them. It's a great model. I'm happy, very, very happy to get to be part of it. Yes, sir.
2 questions. Age ranges up, lower, what's kind of the minimum age?
So the minimum age would be 18 unless the court has decided that that person is an adult. Otherwise, there's no maximum age. No, so we are not going to be able to be an assisted living house for someone. If someone is in need of nurse aides or whatnot to come into the house, well, then sure, they can arrange that. They can be voted in as a member on that behalf and then arrange for assisted living of that nature. But sometimes people are not fit for Oxford, and that might be one of the instances. My 98-year-old grandmother probably wouldn't do well in an Oxford house. Instead, I'll let her stay with my mom.
I mean, people get, wheelchair.
Yeah.
Handicaps.
Yes, we don't have too many ADA houses at the moment, but that is something we are interested in. But yes, anybody that is able to, no problem at all. Yes, ma'am. Oxford House is a great supporter of the LGBTQ plus community. No problem at all.
But are there certain areas up and down the Front Range counties where you just say the rules or regulations or the
No, so that,
city or just, we're gonna avoid that?
there's not a single city in the United States that we have any issue with opening up a house in. Because of that protective act that we were just talking about.
But that doesn't preclude you from dealing with the issues that an HOA would rise, would it?
Yeah, I mean, we could potentially make that case, but there's no point in fighting that battle. We'll pick our battles if that's not one of them.
Okay.
So I was looking to open an Oxford House in Cleveland, so I reached out to somebody in Ohio. And they currently don't have any boots on the ground in Cleveland. They are in the future, but right now they weren't particularly looking for a house in that area, so I'm just kind of waiting for that area, but they could do it anywhere, it's just where they want to utilize the resources.
Yeah, that's very accurate. Can I ask, when was that conversation with Ohio?
Let's go.
Okay.
Yeah, they open up.
Yeah. That's right.
That's his first investment. Yeah.
So you got good news that Al got his first bad news, which is good news for him. With the SVB.
Oh, yeah.
Finally has something to get mad about.
The rain, yeah.
Yeah, right.
Don't get out started, don't get out started.
Outside of the US, what other countries are you?
Oh, that's a great question. So we were in New Zealand, Ghana, Canada, and England, I believe.
Nothing in, you said Canada, nothing in Mexico.
Not just yet.
I'm originally from Montreal, Canada. Are there any restrictions to like the language there with Oxford, French?
You know, I'm not sure on the answer to that question. I wish I knew more.
They don't let people that speak French live there.
Yes, I
Totally understand. That's kind of one of those things. No, this is a good class. That's right. What do you think, Karen? Karen?
I have a question now. Oh, I know. Do you have a list of desirable areas that you're looking at?
I can definitely get you a list. So I know a little bit more about the SoCo area where I'm stationed. I know some about the other areas, but that's the beauty of having coworkers that are stationed in different areas. And so I can get you in contact with any of those outreach workers from those areas, or simply just get you a list of where the biggest need is. I can say Montrose and La Junta area right now are the biggest needs that I'm aware of. And of course, Denver is always in. And as Vince mentioned, this is not a Colorado thing, right? There's many countries. Often I have people ask me, who can I get in contact with in the Cleveland, Ohio area? And so I get to reach out the branches and find out who that is. And yeah, most of the landlords in this area are not from this. Some of them are, which is great because an absentee landlord still works. Maybe that's not an appropriate term, but someone that's not living in this town, I'm a renter. No, I'm just kidding. I remember. So any other questions, guys?
Any other questions?